2021 IGCSE paper 2. Let's try and get it done in an hour. Let's get it. 600 is a product of prime factors, so I can divide 600 by 6 and that would leave me with 100. I can divide 6 by 2 and 3, which are both prime, so I can circle those. This is 4 times 25. This is 2 and 2, which are both prime, circle those. It really doesn't matter which way that you go, you're always going to get the same answer. And in this case, that is 2. How many are there? 1, 2, 3 of them. So 2 to the 3 multiplied by, there's 1 3 and there are 5, there are 2 5s. Show that question. So first off I need to convert them into a top heavy fraction. So 2 wholes, that is equivalent to 14 sevenths, plus 4 sevenths gives you 18 sevenths. And then 1 whole is 8 eighths, plus 1 will give you 9 eighths. This is the same as multiplying these two but flipping the second one over. Now I can do some cancellation because 18 on top can be divided by 9 and 9 on bottom could also be divided by 9. So this would give me 16, 2 times 8, and 7 times 1 is 7. So 16 over 7, which there are 2 wholes in 14 sevenths and there are 2 sevenths left over. Okay, the bearing, so a back bearing, which is basically going back to where you came from, will always differ by 180 degrees, because no matter what direction you're going in, if you want to go back the other way, you're going to have to turn around. So in this case, 149 plus 180 is going to give you a total of 329. So that is the bearing going back the other way. This is the union between B and I, so it's all of the letters that are in B will count, and also all the letters in I will also count. And I don't want any repeats, so I'm going to cross off any repeats. So there's 2 A's, we don't need that. There are 2 I's, we don't need that. And there are 2 L's, we don't need that. So in total it's B, R, A, Z, I, L, R, E, N, D are all the elements in that set. I'll put little commas between them. Okay, oops, there's an R that's just snuck in there, we don't need that. We don't want 2 R's. Okay, so B intersection I not. So I want all of the ones which are in B and are not in I. So B is in B and it's not in I. R no, A no, Z is in B and it's not in I no, L no, so it's just B and Z. Cody writes down the statement that the intersection between Brazil and Kenya is the empty set. Cody's statement is wrong. Explain why. Well, is there anything they share, Brazil and Kenya? I think they do. They share an A. Just an A? Yeah, just an A. So he is wrong. Explain why. Because B and K share the element, the element A. Okay, let's start by labeling the angle which we want, which is JGH. So JGH is right here. Let me call it X. And then let's start working out a few of the angles here. So because this is an isosceles triangle, we know that the angle EBC is equal to 180 minus 44 divided by 2. which is going to be divided by 2 is going to be 68, and that's because isosceles triangles have 2 equal angles. So that's 68. We also know that this angle in here is 68 because this is a corresponding angle. If you draw a line over that 68 and then a line over this 68, you can see it makes a kind of F shape. So those two angles are the same, so that we can say that this angle here, BGH, is equal to 68, as it is a corresponding angle. And then finally, we know that X, the angle we're looking for, is 180 minus 68, which is equal to 112, and that is because angles on a straight line add to 180. Oh, don't like those questions. You've got to do a lot of writing. And in this question, there's lots of reading to do. Okay, so last week, each contained 12 kilograms of seeds. Next week will contain a mixture whereby the weight of seeds and nuts are 4 to 5, and the total weight of nuts and seed in each bag will be 19.35. So let's take 19.35 and let's divide it by the total number of shares, which is 4 plus 5. And this will give me 1 share. So 19.35 divided by 9, that's going to be 2.15. So the seeds is going to equal 5 times 2.15, which is going to equal 10.75. Okay, that's good because it's asking us for the weight of seeds she sells next week will be less than the weight of seeds that she sells last week. And that is true because this week she's selling this much and last week she sold this much. So let's work out the percentage decrease. Well, what we do is we take the difference between them and we divide by the original, times it by 100. That's how you work out percentage increase or decrease. So I'm going to do 12 minus 10.75 all over 12, and then I'm going to multiply that by 100 to get it into percentage, and I'm going to get 10.4 to 1 decimal place. Perfect. Right, lovely question this, just simple SOHCAHTOA. So opposite the angle and then opposite the hypotenuse, opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse. So we've got O and H, so I'm going to use my sine triangle, and I need to work out the hypotenuse, so I'm going to cover up the hypotenuse, and that tells me that I need to do the opposite O over sine. So the opposite is 6.5 over sine of 42. So I go to my calculator and I type 6.5 over sine 42, close brackets, equals, that's 9.7, just 9.7 to 1 decimal place. Perfect. Simultaneous equations, which ones can I match up the easiest? Well, I can times the top line by 2, and that's going to give me 10a plus 4c is equal to 20, and then I'll keep the bottom one the same, and I can add the two equations because the c coefficients have opposite signs, so they will cancel when I add them. That's going to give me 12a is equal to 27. So dividing through is going to be 27 over 12, which is the same as 9 over 4, or 2.25. And then I will substitute back into one of my equations. I'm going to take this top one here, the first one. So I'm going to do 5 multiplied by 2.25 plus 2c is equal to 10. So 5 times 2.25 is 11.25 plus 2c is equal to 10. Subtract 11.25 on both sides gives me minus 1.25. Divide that through by 2 gives me minus 0.675, I believe. 625. Sloppy. Okay, yeah, that's good. And sorry, just quickly, we can always check this on our calculator by going to Menu, Equation, Simultaneous, 2 unknowns, and we have 5, 2, 10, 2, minus 4, 7, and there are answers. Perfect. Factorising. I need to find two numbers that times together to make minus 24 and add together to make 2. Those two numbers are minus 4 and plus 6. Then solving, I would need either of my brackets to equal 0. So either this bracket equals 0 or this bracket equals 0. In this case, I'll get x equals 4. In this case, I'll get x equals minus 6. Here is a triangular prism. Work out the volume. Well, any prism, you need to work out the cross-sectional area first, which in this case is a triangle. So let's just draw the triangle in 2D so we know what we're working with. We've got the base and we don't have the height, we have the slanted height instead. So I need to work out this height h, and I'm going to use Pythagoras' theorem. So the two short side squareds will equal the long side squared. So h squared will equal 11.2 squared minus 7.4 squared. So I want to do the square root of 11.2 squared minus 7.4 squared. So that just goes straight into the calculator. Let's find that. It's the square root of 11.2 squared minus 7.4 squared, and that gives me 8.41. I'll keep that in the calculator because to work out the volume I'll need to do the area of the triangle, which is a half base times height, and then I'll multiply that by the length of the prism, which is 15. So I will do a half multiplied by 7.4 multiplied by the height 8.41 multiplied by 15, and I will do 0.5 multiplied by 7.4 multiplied by the previous answer times by 15, and that will give me 466.5. So to three significant figures, that's 467 centimeters cubed. Chengbo sold a house for 180,000 yuan. The amount for which he sold the house is 24% more than the amount he paid for the house. So the original price was multiplied by an increase of 24%, so that's timesing by 1.24, and this gave me the new price, or the price he sold for, which is 180,000. So to find the original price, I need to reverse this calculation and I need to divide by 1.24. So I'll do 180000 divided by 1.24, and that gives me, to three significant figures, 145,000. For this question, you need to know your compound interest formula, which is, first off, you take the percentage increase and add it to 100, and then divide it by 100. And this will give you the multiplier of 1.018. We then multiply the amount of money by this multiplier to the power of, in this case, 3, because there are 3 years that have taken place. So we go to our calculator and we put in the amount and we times it by the multiplier, and then we raise it to the power of the number of years. Three significant figures is 127. So it's 127000. Okay, next is a cumulative frequency question. You don't have to add up the cumulative frequency, which is normally the easiest mark on the IGCSE. They've given it for you. So all we need to do is just plot. So we are going to go plotting at the end points, which is really important. So 5 goes to 17. So 5 to 17. 10 to 32. 15 to 57. 15 to 57, 20 to 70, 25 to 76, and 30 is up to 80. We would then want to connect this graph up using a smooth curve, like so. And then we're going to answer questions. So use your graph to find the estimate for the median. So there are 80 people, so the median will be located in the 40th position. So you go across from 40 on the cumulative frequency, and then you draw a line straight down from there, and that should be your median value, which looks to me like 11.5. There's always some degree of freedom with these, as long as you make sure you've drawn your lines on correctly. Use your graph to find out an estimate for the interquartile range. Well, the upper quartile is in the 60th position. So I'll do that first to get 16. And the lower quartile is in the 20th position, and this gives me 6. So that will be, the upper quartile will equal 16, the lower quartile will equal 6. So subtract one from the other gives me the interquartile range, which will be 10. And it says, for office B, the median distance workers travel from home to work is 15, and the interquartile range is 5. Use the information above to compare the distances that workers at office A and workers at office B travel home from work. So office B, the median is 15, which is greater than 11.5. So on average, they travel further. And then we can say, sorry, that should be office B. Office B, the interquartile range is 5, which is smaller than 10. And then we say that the distances are less spread out. for B compared with A. Okay, probability tree diagram. It says that they're independent, so what that means is that the second race will have the same probability. It won't be affected by the first race. So we've got 0.3 over here, 0.4, 0.6, 0.4, 0.6. It says, what is the probability that she wins exactly one of the two races? Well, that can happen by her either winning and then losing, or her losing and then winning. So we need to work out the probabilities of both of these two branches. So the first one is 0.7 times 0.6, which is 0.42, and the second one is 0.3 times 0.4, which is 0.12. And overall, she can have either of these two options, so we can add these two probabilities together to get 0.54. If she's going to take part in a third race, if she wins both of the first two races, the probability that she'll win the third race is 0.6. If she wins exactly one of the first two races, the probability she wins the third race is 0.3. Work out the probability that she will win exactly two of the three races. Well, to win two of the three, she has to either win two and then lose, or she can win one of the first two and then win. So 2 wins and a loss. Well, let's go back up here. So in order for her to win twice, it will be 0.7 times 0.4. So we'll have 0.7 times 0.4, and then she has won 2 races, and then she's going to lose, so that's going to be times by 0.4. If she wins exactly one of the first 2 races, which we already worked out, that probability of her winning one of the first 2 was 0.54. The probability that she'll win the third, which she'll need to in order to win 2 in total, is 0.3. So these are the 2 options for her. So we go to the calculator and we do 0.7 times 0.4 times 0.4, and we get 0.112. And then we do 0.54, we multiply that by 0.3, and that gives us 0.162. And we add these 2 up because either option will give us success. So that will give you plus 0.112, which is 0.274. Okay, a classic indice question here. So first I'm going to do this bit by bit, and the first thing as I'm going to look at is this half power. Now x to the power of half, or anything to the power of half, is the square root of that thing. So I need to square root, and when I square root a fraction I can square root the numerator and denominator separately. So the square root of 9 is 3, and the square root of x to the 4 is x to the 2, because x to the 2 times x to the 2 equals x to the 4. And over, the square root of 16 is 4, and the square root of y to the 10 is y to the 5. But we've still got this negative power here. So what does a negative power do? Well, it takes the reciprocal of a value. So in this case, I can just flip over my fraction, and that will be the reciprocal. A table of values. You don't see these questions very often, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my table of values function on my calculator. Why not? So 1 over x and then I need to multiply that by x squared plus 4, and I don't need a second function, and I am, oh, it's a bit cheeky actually. Let's start at 0.5. I didn't realise they're not going to go up in nice orderly fashion. Let's end at 8, and let's make sure we go up in 0.5s, I guess, to make sure we get everything. Now, which are the ones that we need? Okay, 0.5 is 8.5. 1 is 5. 2 is 4. And then going down, we get that 4 is 5. And we're done. Okay, so now I can see, and a quarter is 16.25. So a quarter will be 16.25, which will go roughly about there. And then 0.5 is 8.5. So that will go there. And then we've got 1 is 5. And 2 is 4. And 4 is 5. And 8 is 8.5. Connect it up with a smooth curve. And that should do the job. Question 16 is an inverse proportional question where a is inversely proportional to the square of r, a is equal to 5, and r is equal to 0.3. So the formula for inverse proportional is that a is inversely proportional, means it's 1 over whatever the second variable is, which in this case is r squared. We can then write that a is equal to some constant k multiplied by 1 over r squared, and that forms our equation. We can then substitute in our values, so a is 5, and that's k multiplied by 1 over 0.3 squared. So to find k, I need to multiply both sides by 0.3 squared, so I get 5 times 0.3 squared. So that goes into our calculator, 5 times 0.3 squared, and that gives us 9 over 20. So k is equal to 9 over 20. So therefore our formula is that a is equal to 9 over 20 multiplied by 1 over r squared. Okay, part B, I know my formula is equal to a 9 over 20, and I can write r squared like this, because if I multiply through by 1 on top, I'm going to get 9, and r squared on the bottom, I'm going to get this. Now what I can do is I can substitute in, because they told me what the value of r is. It said it's 7.5 capital A squared. I don't like having a fraction in my equation, so I can multiply both sides by 20 and by 7.5 a squared, which is going to give me, so it's going to be a multiplied by 20, 7.5 a all squared, and that's equal to 9. And now what I can do is I can divide through by 20, so I'm going to get a 7.5 a squared is equal to 9 over 20. I can multiply out that bracket. First off, let's figure out what 7.5 squared is, and that is 225 over 4. And I'm going to get an a squared, and times by an a is going to be an a cubed. So I'm going to get 225 over 4 a cubed is equal to 9 over 20. And then I can take my 9 over 20 and I can divide it by 225 over 4 to get my value for a cubed, which is 1 over 25. Oops, 1 over 125, sorry. And then I can take the cube root of that. And I get an answer of 1/5. Okay, question 17. A straight line passes through the points 4, -1 and 6, 4. The straight line M is perpendicular to L and intersects the y-axis at the point 0, 8. Find the coordinates of the point where M intersects the y-axis. Okay, so first off, I can take these 2 points and I can find their gradient. So the gradient is equal to the change in the y over the change in the x. Now the y changes by 4 is this y2 value, and y1 value is -1, so minus 1. And the x changes by 6, take away 4, because this is the x2 value and that's the x1 value. This gives me 5 over 10. Oh, sorry, no, 5 over 2. Great. Now it asks me to work out the perpendicular. So the gradient perpendicular, which I'll write as M2, is always the negative reciprocal, and in order to work out the perpendicular gradient, you could do -1 divided by the previous gradient. And this will give me -2 over 5. You'll notice it's just a flip of the first one and the signs change. It tells me that it intersects the y-axis at this particular point. Well, that's the y-intercept, so that means I can go straight into writing y is equal to the gradient m x plus c, and the y-intercept in there is 8, so it goes through the point here at 0, 8. And now what it asks me to do is work out the where it intersects the x-axis. Now where it intersects the x-axis is where the y value is equal to 0. Again, if you've got a line passing through the x-axis, right there, the y value equals 0. So I can say 0 is equal to -2/5 x plus 8. I can move that to the other side to say that 2/5 x is equal to 8. So therefore the x coordinate is 8 divided by 2/5, which is equal to 20. It says find the coordinates, so I have to write it as 20, 0, like that. And we're done. Okay, it says work out, it gives you all this information which is drawn on the diagram, and then it asks us to work out the perimeter of the quadrilateral. Okay, so first off, I know one side is 8, and that's helpful. And I'm going to need to also find, well, I know this side as well. Okay, that's great. So all of my problem is in this second triangle, and I've only got one angle in there, the 35, so I need more information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find this distance here, this green line, because that's going to give me another side of that triangle. So I'm going to call that green line x, and we're going to use the cosine formula for that, which is that x squared is equal to, in this case, the two other sides, a squared and b squared, minus 2 lots of a times b, multiplied by cosine of the angle opposite x, which in this case is 98. You know you have to use the cosine rule when you have 3 sides, i.e. 2 that are given and 1 you're trying to find, and only one angle, which is what we have. Okay, so this goes into our calculator. I'll start by just doing the square root, so I can just find the value of x straight away, and then do 8 squared plus 7.5 squared minus 2 times 8 times 7.5 times the cosine of 98. Gives me 11.7 is the value for x. So x equals 11.7. That should be 98 there. Okay, now I'm going to still need some more information, because only having 2 bits of information in a triangle is not enough. I need 3 bits of information, and I'm going to find the other bit by a circle theorem rule, and that is that opposite angles in a circle, in a cyclic quadrilateral, sorry, add up to 180, so this must be 102. Not 102, sorry, 82. Because 82 plus 98 equals 180. Right, now I've got enough information, I can start attacking this second triangle. These two are a pair, as in one is opposite the other in terms of size and angles. So I can work out another opposite pair. So I'm going to call this side here, let's just call this side little a. And I know now from the sine rule that a over sine 35 is equal to another pair which we have, which is that 11.7 over sine 82. So rearranging this tells me that a is equal to 11.7 over sine 82 multiplied by sine 35. So I go to my calculator and I write 11.7 over sine 82 multiplied by sine of 35. 6.78. So a equals 6.78. And I'm also needed to find another side. Let's call this side b. I'm going to need its opposite angle in order to do the sine rule again. Luckily, we've got 3 angles inside that triangle, so I can just do 180 minus 82 and minus 35, and I get 63. So that angle up there is 63. So I can say that b over sine 63 is equal to 11.7. I could use either of those pairs that I found, but I'm just going to use this one. So b is equal to 11.7 over sine 82 times by sine 63. So I'll do again 11.7 over sine of 82 multiplied by sine of 63. And that gives me 10.5. So b is equal to 10.5. So finally, the perimeter is adding up all of these sides. So I had 8, 7.5, 6.78, and 10.5. So I add that to 6.78 plus 8 plus 7.5, and I get 32.8. Okay, on we go. Simultaneous quadratic equations. You get y is equal to 3 minus 2x and x squared plus y squared equals 18. Well, this one is already has one of the variables as the subject, which is really handy. So I can start off by squaring that. And to square the left hand side gives me y squared. To square the right hand side, I must square the whole right hand side as 1. So this is 3 minus 2x, 3 minus 2x, which is going to give me 9 minus 6x minus 6x plus 4x squared, which is a total of 9 minus 12x plus 4x squared. Now I've done that because I can then substitute this y squared. I can replace completely with this because that is also equal to y squared. So now my second equation becomes x squared plus 9 minus 12x plus 4x squared is equal to 18. I can then write this as 5x squared by collecting the terms. Minus 12x plus 9 equals 18. And then I can minus the 18 from both sides to get minus 9 is equal to 0. Okay, now does that factorize? It would be helpful if it did, so let's check. The AC, which is the A term multiplied by the C term, is minus 45. And the B term, which is the one in the middle, is minus 12. Now I've got to find two numbers that times together to make minus 45 and add together to make minus 12. And those two numbers are minus 15 and positive 3. Yes, that works great. So I'm going to use my method to do this. I take the A term, which is 5, and I write 5x, all divided by 5. I then put those two numbers in, which I calculated, which was minus 15 and plus 3. And then I see if I can divide through by 5, and I can divide the left bracket by 5 perfectly. So I'll do that to get x minus 3, and this one stays the same, and that equals 0. Now this tells me that either x minus 3 equals 0, or 5x plus 3 equals 0. So x equals 3, or 5x equals minus 3, so x equals minus 3 over 5, or minus 0.6. Those are the two x values. Let's go back to our original equation, that blue one at the top, to work out the y values. That's 3 minus 2x. So y values are 3 minus 2 of the x's. So in this first instance, it's 3 minus 2 lots of 3, which is equal to minus 3. And this one, it is 3 minus 2 times by minus 0.6. And that gives me, it's the same as like adding on 1.2, so 4.2. So those are my answers. I can collect them up together like this, so it's nice and clear which one goes with which. And we're done. Okay, mathematically similar wooden blocks are made in a workshop, so mathematically similar. There are small blocks and there are large blocks. The volume of each small block is 300. Given that the surface area of the small block to the surface area of the large block is 5 to 6, work out the volume of each large block. Okay? So we have small to large in the second dimension, so area, is 25 to 36. Now, if I wanted to move that into the first dimension, then I would need to square root. So in order for me to do that, that would then give me 5 to 6. And if I wanted to move that into the third dimension, from the first, I would have to cube, which would give me 125 to 216. So that's the scale factor in the third dimension. The small block is 300. So if I write 300 here, what do I need to multiply to get 125 to 300? Well, that would be whatever 300 divided by 125 is, which is 2.4. So on this side, I would do exactly the same. And I would get multiplied by 2.4, and that is 518.4. So that is the volume of the larger block. Okay, question 21. Point A is the only stationary point on the curve with this equation. So for straight off the bat, stationary point means I have to differentiate. And it says, given that the coordinates of A are 2/3 in A, work out the value of little a. Right, so in order for me to differentiate a function, it has to be in a particular form. And I don't like this over x here. So the way I can write 1 over x is x to the minus 1. So I'm going to write k plus x squared plus 16 times by x to the minus 1. I can then find dy by dx by differentiating. Now when I differentiate, I take the power and I multiply it by the coefficient, and then I drop the power down by 1. So 2 times by k is 2k, and dropping the power down by 1 gives me x to the 1, or just x. Here I'm going to do the same thing. Multiplying through by minus 1 to 16 gives me minus 16. So I actually write here minus 16. And then I drop the power down by 1, so it goes down to minus 2. And stationary points occur when the derivative is equal to 0. So I'm going to set this equal to 0, and I'm going to try and find my stationary point. Okay, so first of all, what I could do is I could rewrite this slightly by adding 16x to the minus 2 to that side. And also, I could write 16x to the minus 2 is the same as 16 over x squared. I can multiply both sides by x squared to give me this. I could then divide both sides by 2, and I get this. And I can also divide through by k, and then I can cube root, which will give me 2 over the cube root of k. Okay, so let's have a look. Well, we know actually what the x-coordinate is. It's this. It's 2 over 3. So I know that the x-coordinate is 2 over 3. Okay, well what must k be then? Well, from here we can see that the cube root of k is equal to 3. So cubing both sides gives me that k is equal to 27. Okay, that's handy, but we've still got to work out the a coordinate. Well, I've got a formula for the a coordinate because that essentially is the y coordinate. So this is what we need to find. It's the y coordinate, and this is our formula which tells us all the y coordinates. So I can write that y is equal to, k we now know is 27, x, at the particular point we're looking at, x is 2/3, squared, plus 16, and again over 2/3. Well, that can just go straight in our calculator. 27 multiplied by 2/3 squared plus 16 over 2/3. And that gives 36. So the y value is equal to 36, so therefore the a is equal to 36. Okay, next question is a graph transformation question. It says that S has the equation f of x, where f of x is equal to x squared, and T has the equation g of x, where g of x is equal to 2x squared minus 12x plus 13. By writing g of x in the form of that, or at least it gives us a little help here, so we've got to first off complete the square. Okay, so if I'm completing the square, I want to take out the factor of the x squared, which is 2. So I can write x squared there, and taking it out of 12 gives me 6x. And I'm going to add the 13 on separately. I find it easier that way. Now what I can do is focus only on this part, and I can complete the square. Now when I complete the square, I look at the b term, or the x term in this case, which is minus 6, and I half it. So half of minus 6 gives me minus 3, which is the value that goes inside the bracket with an x, squared, and then I always take away, and that value again is minus 3 squared. Okay, so that's just a quick and easy way of completing the square every time. We take this minus 6, we half it, we write it here, and we write it here, and everything else stays exactly the same every time. Okay, now what we can do is we can multiply out. So 2 times by this bracket is just 2 lots of that bracket. 2 times by what is minus 9 is minus 18, and then plus 13. So overall that gives me 2x minus 3 squared, and then this is minus 5. Okay, cracking. Now what we need to do is we need to describe fully a series of transformations that maps S onto the curve T. Okay. Well, let's look at them bit by bit. First off, what is this? Well, this is taking the function and subtracting 3 to its input. And what that does is that translates so this is a translation to the right. So it's going to send it to the right by 3 spaces. Now, whenever there is something that happens inside the bracket, i.e. it happens to the input, it's going to do the opposite of what you expect. So not to the left like a minus you would expect, but it's to the right. Okay, the next thing is this. We're taking away 5. That happens outside the bracket, so that would be f of x minus 5. And that's going to shift the graph down by 5. And then finally, we've also got this as well. So that's we're multiplying the whole function by 2. So it's 2f of x. And that changes the y component, and it multiplies it by 2. So it's going to be stretched. It's going to be stretched by a scale factor of 2 upwards. So putting that all together, I could say that it will be translated, or translation, by the vector 3 minus 5. And it's also going to be stretched by a scale factor of 2 in the y direction. And we're done. Okay, so question number 23, we've got a box containing n pens, and there are only black and red pens in the box. The number of black pens is 3 more than the number of red pens. Pippa's going to take 2 pens from the box, and the probability she takes a black pen followed by red is 9 out of 35. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a quick tree diagram to see what our options are. Now, in the first pick, she can have either black or red, and then it's the same again for the second. So we're going to need to start assigning some sort of values. So let's just call B the number of black pens. So what I know is the number of black pens plus the number of red pens is going to equal the total number in the box. Now, what's the probability that she takes a black pen straight off the bat? Well, that will be B over the number of black pens over the number of pens in the box. Okay, and then followed by a red pen. Now the number of red pens will be exactly the same because she's taken a black pen. So it'll be R, but the number in total in the box would have dropped down by 1. So this is the route that we're taking because we've been told that she is going to take a black followed by a red. Okay, so, and what we know from tree diagrams is that if we multiply the probabilities along a branch of the tree, we will get the overall probability, and that is what we're told is 9 over 35. Okay. Okay, so that's all very well, but really we want this equation all in terms of just one variable. And there's also one bit I've not included here, is that the number of black pens is 3 more than the number of red pens. So that actually gives us another equation, that black is equal to the reds plus 3. Because the number of black pens in the box is 3 more than the red. So yes, so the black would be more. So you add 3 to the red, you're going to get equality. Okay. So now let's try and write this equation in terms of just n. So first off, we know that b, from this equation here, we know that b is equal to n minus r. And we know that b is also equal to so that's n minus, and r is b minus 3 from this equation here. Okay, so this tells us that b is equal to n minus b plus 3. So 2b is equal to n plus 3. So n is equal, so b is equal to n plus 3 over 2. Wowza. Okay, so that can go up here and replace this b here. So we have n plus 3 over 2 over n. That needs to be multiplied by r. And what is r? Well, r is, let's just get rid of this working here, and we're going to do something very similar for r, using these two equations. R first off is n minus b from this one. So r is equal to n minus r plus 3. So r is equal to n minus r minus 3. So 2r is equal to n minus 3. So r is equal to n minus 3 over 2. So up here I can write n minus 3 over 2, and then that's over n minus 1, and that equals 9 over 35. Wowza. Okay, I can rewrite this using a bit of algebra skills, and I can move the 2 down to the bottom like that. And I can move this 2 down to the bottom as well. I can then multiply the two numerators together, and you'll know that that will be equal to this by difference of 2 squares. And then we can multiply these 2 down the bottom together as well. I'm going to get 4, and I'm going to get n minus 1. We can then do cross multiplication to get 35 over this side, n squared minus 9. And 9 times 4 is 36, n minus 1. Expanding out the brackets, I get 35n squared minus 35 times 9 is 315. 36n squared minus 36n. Move it all over to the right side to give us 1n squared minus 36n plus 315. That's probably factorizable, but I'm not going to bother because I'm lazy, and I'm just going to go straight to our equation solver, polynomial, degree 2, 1 minus 36, 315. 21, great. And 15, ooh, two answers. 21 and 15.